The Corolla Cross combines a small footprint and a straightforward approach to make for an almost nostalgic Toyota experience. So today I'm going to show you the best and worst parts of it, along with any notable updates for 2023. Leading the tweaks would be the new hybrid powertrain, which is actually pretty exciting because it's the 5th generation hybrid setup that's also being used with the new Prius. And then we also have Toyota's latest infotainment system in here now as well. That means standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Toyota also gave this Safety Sense 3.0, which improves the field of vision and low light performance over last year's car and adds over-the-air updates. Additionally, Toyota is adding sporty trims like the S, SE, and XSE for the hybrid models only, which add a dash of seasoning to the looks and a sport-tuned suspension. That rounds out the changes. Before I get into the meat of this video, if you enjoy fun, detailed car content without fluff, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. So the first pro to the Corolla Cross, in my opinion, is going to come from the powertrain choices, mainly because you can now get the hybrid. That packs 194 horsepower, dropping the 0 to 60 down from 9s to 8 seconds flat, according to Toyota. And it comes standard with a rear electric motor, giving it all-wheel drive. There's no actual drive shaft connecting the front and rear. It uses the same 2-liter naturally aspirated engine as the standard Corolla Cross, but also adds in the latest motors in Toyota's arsenal. However, due to the RAV4 hybrid's disregard for physics, Toyota's estimated combined fuel economy of 37 miles per gallon combined for the Corolla Cross comes off underwhelming, but should still have about a 7 mile per gallon advantage. The hybrid model also deviates further away from this front-end design. While it does make for somewhat pokey acceleration for the class, there are some pros to sticking with the 2-liter engine. Without electrification, the 2-liter is still adequate, providing acceptable passing power. Now, no wheel spin whatsoever. But the more important thing is the transmission. It is a continuously variable setup, but it comes with a launch gear, which gives you a more linear takeoff and natural acceleration at low speeds, a common downside to most CVTs. It also has no qualms with downshifting, allowing the thing to never feel too burdened, which is a big compliment to the CVT, as the engine needs to be wrung out to remotely hustle the Corolla Cross. Get the hybrid if you want a more easygoing power plant. It feels like a caffeinated 2-liter Crosstrek. It should be sufficient for a vast majority of subcompact CUV buyers, but for similar money, a Mazda CX-30 has more kick if that's what you want. And if you want a better buying experience, consider Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, Indiana, the friendly, community-focused dealership that let me test drive this Corolla Cross and others to make this video possible. Check them out. While on the topic of transmissions, I should also bring up the hybrid's eCVT. While I haven't driven it in the Corolla Cross, in other models it provides for instantaneous response. It can change ratios very quickly because it uses another electric motor to switch up the gearing. While the all-wheel drive offered here is very basic, it's available on every trim. Front-wheel drive is standard, unless again you get the electrified variant. The next thing that I like about the Corolla Cross is its comfort and handling. While I wouldn't label either of those as top of the class here, it's forgiving enough on the most broken of roads that Indiana has to offer. You do feel even the more minor imperfections underneath you, but they never become a nuisance. And the steering is quite precise. It feels nimble, but this doesn't mean it's going to bring a smile to your face. It is still very numb and light. Even on epic roads, this thing stirs up less emotion than dates with girls whose only hobby is bottomless mimosas. While I think its comfort and direct steering are far more important here, consider a Honda HR-V or the Mazda for more driver engagement. The front-wheel drive models also lose independent rear suspension. While I haven't driven a 2-wheel drive Cross, I have recently been behind the wheel of a base Corolla with a torsion beam rear and still found it to be confident and comfortable, just not as sure-footed when the road is really tattered. Compared to more entry-level Mazda CX-30s, the interior of the low-spec Corolla Cross feels like Kmart jeans, but its simple layout and analog controls make it something that stands out to me, so that's my next reason to pick one up. The buttons and dials look premium, and there's not really very many of them. And while I wouldn't call it luxurious in the slightest, panel gaps are good for the class, material choice is okay, and I think a lot of people will find this appealing. Lower specs have a fully analog cluster. The XLE gains a straightforward driving display with little configurability. The infotainment is also easy to use, with an adequate response time and a good resolution. Though after owning a Corolla, I've found it to be annoying when it comes to user setup. At least wireless Apple CarPlay is standard. Toyota did go a little too bare bones in one place. Having hubcaps at 25 grand is acceptable, but it's weird that they'd omit the rear wiper too. Regardless, people that are bothered by complicated new cars should like the Corolla Cross. Another aspect that they may be drawn to is the space. Well, for the most part. Up front, you have very good knee room. A lot of Toyotas have been adopting a super thick center console, but this one doesn't. And while the seats themselves are just okay in most regards, at 6'3", I find myself comfortable enough. And you do have the availability for lumbar adjustment, but you have to go to the top trim, where you'll also find things like heated front seats and Softex upholstery. The only part where this falls short is rear legroom. While it's still not offensive like one of its competitors or the regular Corolla hatchback, if you have taller occupants, they will have to put their knees around the back seat, and maybe if you have the most ginormous of child seats or kids with the highest of demands, this won't be ideal. The cargo area, on the other hand, is phenomenal. It's a big box, kind of like a scaled down RAV4. And it's toward the top of the class if you're looking at the numbers too. But if I'm talking storage, I do wish that the cup holder situation was a little better. They don't have anything to really grip your bottles, and the cubbies themselves are petite. The next thing that stands out here is the value proposition. Even with all-wheel drive, it's going to start at just 25 grand after destination. It may feel like a $25,000 car, but it comes with LED projector headlights, rear console vents, heated mirrors, color keyed door handles and spoiler, good infotainment, 6 speakers, a pleasant ride, and big space. The LE builds on that with a leather wheel, a proxy key, alloy wheels, blind spot monitoring, and more for not a big jump in price. While some nice features like ventilated seats, dual zone automatic climate control, or a head-up display are unavailable, you can get this with a power tailgate or a JBL sound system with a subwoofer. So if you enjoy the nicer things, the Corolla Cross won't leave you completely hanging. Plus, all-wheel drive with an independent rear suspension comes with just a $1,300 fee. And the last reason that is basically a given is going to be predicted reliability. I say predicted because this has only been out for 1 year, though it's based on the Corolla, which started out this generation for the 2019 model year with the hatchback, and that's been pretty robust. The 2-liter engine has very little problems. There were a select amount of people that complained about the transmission at first, but those complaints have dropped off, as have the other minor qualms with the regular Corolla. In fact, Consumer Reports showed virtually 0 problems for the 2022 Corolla Cross. Add that in with direct and port fuel injection to help keep those intake valves clean, and if reliability and longevity are your highest priorities, this would be my best bet in the class, though it does slightly underwhelm in some other areas, so let's go over the drawbacks. First, despite being in a class mostly devoid of speedsters, the Corolla Cross is among the slowest. The gas mileage, it's okay for the class, but if we're looking at the RAV4, it's nearly identical, and this is a lot smaller vehicle. I do have a fleeting suspicion, though, that if you travel at lower speeds on the highway, this will actually have an edge on the RAV4, just basing off of the city gas mileage numbers. Something that I definitely feel they should tweak is the steering weight. It is really light, and it's honestly not a bad handling car, so that could be just an extra step into making this almost fun. There could also definitely be more premium touches to the interior, whether that be, padding around the knees, less glossy stuff that gets all smudged and dusty quick. And lastly, there's very little flair here without the hybrid's zesty trims. However, at the same time, that makes it a more honest SUV. It accepts the fact that it is just boring by nature. I would be happy if it was more fun or luxurious, but as it sits, the Corolla Cross is a straightforward, comfortable, dependable SUV that won't break the bank. Truly, the biggest problem with these is how Toyota builds far too few of them. If you can find one and you don't need a tiny crossover to get your heart pumping, the Corolla Cross should be on your short list. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then leave a like to help me dazzle the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell for more. Follow me on Patreon for additional content and to help take this channel to new heights. I'll catch you in the next one.